Welcome back, everyone, to Let's Talk Business, episode number 8. I am here with a repeat guest. I'm so glad he's back with me. This is Doug Lineberry. He is a partner at Burr Forman. And real quick, Burr Forman, they serve clients with local, national, and international needs, really. Their strengths: financial, manufacturing, healthcare, food and beverage sector. The firm has offices throughout the Southeast, but in South Carolina, we're talking about Bluffton, we're talking about Charleston, we're talking about Columbia and Greenville, and even Myrtle Beach. Doug Lineberry, welcome, pal.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate being back.
It is good to have you back. I haven't talked to you in a while, and so we want to continue talking a little bit about intellectual property as I pull up some notes here. I had told you, you and I have talked several times. I, of course, started my own business not too long ago, and you are watching it or listening to it right now. And you and I got together and talked about several things about intellectual property that I had no idea that I needed to think about or that I needed to worry about. But I found out pretty quick that I did. So to start us all off, define intellectual property.
Sure. Consider it your soft ownership. Consider it to be the knowledge that helps your company become valuable. You tell a lot of people that they have intellectual property, Rick, they'll stare at you like you're just using magic words. Right. Everybody has it. Yeah. You've got a trademark. Guess what? Yeah. It's going to be right here. Let's Talk Business, South Carolina. Right. That's innate to you. And what we want to really talk about is, hey, recognizing that you have it and then taking steps to protect it. A lot of folks go out and do business just kind of in a cavalier fashion. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to make money, and I'm going to have clients, and it's awesome. Right. But, you've got to look at it beyond that. How do you protect your marketplace? How do you get consumer identification? How do you handle succession planning when you're ready to terminate the business or sell the business or do something else? There are a lot of things that IP really has a huge tenterhook in that a lot of people don't consider. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it comes up in a bad way. Someone will be like, hey, I'm selling a business, but they've not protected anything. Yeah. That can be used against them in the negotiation if they're not careful.
Of course, because now somebody has to pay to protect it on the back end.
That's right.
When we talked last, you said something that I really never thought about. IP is not only the things that come to mind immediately, like you just said a minute ago, such as a logo. That's the first thing that pops into my mind. But it can be many other things. And I think when you were here the first time, you mentioned that even a scent could be trademarked. And you gave me an example, but I certainly forget that example.
It's the Verizon store. Walk in, inhale, take a deep breath.
Yes.
Guess what? You and I cannot set up a mobile electronics store that smells that way. Yeah. So it's a very clever thing. And there are a lot of facets to intellectual property that are fascinating. You've seen the local sound ordinances. If you're Harley Davidson, you're not exactly a fan of that because they trademark their sound. And so there are a lot of ways that you can protect yourself that aren't quite obvious. And I would encourage anybody who is curious about those things, reach out to an intellectual property attorney. Say, hey, maybe I'm thinking off the planet here. Maybe I'm a little crazy, but you never know. Maybe your scent's the one that nobody else can emulate.
How do you protect a sound?
It's a beautiful question. If you and I try to make a motorcycle that sounds like a Harley, we'll learn pretty quickly that we can't do that. No, seriously. And they've got the sound. It's part of their endemic. It's part of their brand. Again, like we talked about earlier, it's what a consumer identifies with because, by gosh, if you drive past a Harley, you know what it sounds like. Yeah. And if you try to make a motorcycle that sounds like a Harley, they'll come get you.
Interesting stuff. Let's talk about IP audits. We should all do an IP audit. What does that entail?
Absolutely. That is sort of that self-check. Hey, what do I have? Have I taken care of my logo? Am I too close to someone else's logo? What do I own? A critical thing, Rick, and this comes up every 2 weeks in my practice, assignments. People will go out and have work done for them by a third party and not realize that, hey, paying for it's not enough. If they create some sort of product for you, whether it be a software code or a website or a logo, you're going to want an assignment from that. If you don't, this can later trigger some serious copyright issues because if you use an artist to come up with your logo, you get successful down the road and you're using this without owning the copyright. You're like, oh, wait, we're talking about a trademark, Doug. We're not talking about copyright. We're talking about both. But they overlap. And so, just like yours, you've got a novel design to it. It's not just the text. You've got a specific look to it. And if you designed that, Rick, you're awesome. If you used a third party to do it, we probably need to get you an assignment. Same thing happens to a lot of folks is they will go out and hire someone to pay them. You pay $1,000 for that, $1,500, whatever you paid, and you'll say, I own it. But that's not sufficient. You need to be able to say, not only do I own that iteration of it, I own the copyright. I'm the person who can make additional versions of it, who can tweak it, who can make a derivative. A lot of folks don't do that, and it comes back to haunt them.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. You see sometimes a logo, and I do have one that it's just not showing right there, but you see a logo that has the trademark piece on it. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about even more? You're talking about more than that.
I am. Marketing with TM is a beautiful thing. It shows the world, hey, this is mine. Keeps the honest thieves away, as they say.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is the artist who created your logo for you. Like yours is that a sound pattern along with the dialogue box?
Yeah.
So someone came up with that for you, Rick, and whoever designed that is now an author. They are, in the sense of a copyright, the creator of that. And what we want to make certain of is that your company, again, not a personal asset, but your company owns that copyright. Because if you get off and all of a sudden you're syndicated and you're here, you're Japan, you're China, you go back to that author and guess what? The price for that's going to change.
Of course it will.
And, it's like a Nike swoosh, man. They paid just a pittance for it from an art student, but that's one of the most recognizable trademarks on the planet. Trust you me, they got a copyright assignment on that. But a lot of people don't think to do that. And it's not that they're not a Nike swoosh or have that capability. They just don't consider it. And that is a massive problem that happens all the time.
I never thought of. Actually, I've never heard of that. I have never heard about that. It's interesting, though. Here we are filming and recording audio and video in the Drum Creative Studio located in Greenville. And my friends at Drum created this logo that we have been looking at on a screen behind us. So if you're listening in on the radio, you don't see the screen. If you're watching on the video, of course you do. But my friends who are sitting behind the camera right now created that logo for me. So what you're saying is I need to talk to these guys.
Those two, an assignment, post-haste. Yes.
Okay. All right. Johnny, you hear that? Okay. All right. He is nodding his head. Let's move on, Doug. Let's talk about policing your IP. Tell me what that means.
This is one of the more parts that get people a little tetchy, a little hinky. Not many of us like to be mean. And I have to convince folks you're not being mean. You're protecting yourself. Because if you have your logo, and guess what? You see a talk show out of Asheville or Charlotte or Atlanta that says, hey, let's talk capitalism or let's talk corporate. And they've got your dialogue box and they, instead of South Carolina, they've got a Georgia on that. It's probably too close to comfort for you. You want to have a nice established boundary of, look, this is Rick's. This is Let's Talk Business. This is my footprint. This is my mark. And so a lot of people get a little hesitant on that. They're afraid to be like, oh gosh, you're using something too close. You can't be that way. You have to police it. I'm not saying be nasty. By all means, I encourage my clients. I'll tell them, if you've ever heard me present or tell a client this, I'll say, speak like you would in church. Be nice. Go out for that first attempt and say, hey, I need you not to do this. Here's some problems with it. Think about the food industry. If we've got two similar trademarks to each other, somebody makes a bad batch of cookies, consumers are not going to try to wheedle out, okay, who used the bad flour? They just cease buying those brands. And if their brands say, Mama's Cookies and Mom's Cookies, well, guess what? They're going to stop buying them both. They're not going to sit there and try to discern, was it Mama's or was it Mom's? And so you don't want trademarks that are too similar to your own to coexist, especially for similar services or products. You want to establish a boundary, a nice line in the sand, and be like, look, you come no closer than this.
Now, sometimes that is local, but sometimes we're talking someone who's clear across the country that you have to have a conversation with or even further than that. And I figure that is where an intellectual property attorney such as yourself comes in.
Mm-hmm. We can definitely help with that. But again, Rick, I'm telling you, the easiest thing to do is a nice, gentle call to begin with. A lot of people will be like, well, my fault, didn't know, didn't appreciate it. And especially if they're distanced from you geographically, you absolutely might just have a mistake. And sometimes an easy phone call makes a sort of a tenuous situation go away quick.
I'll get you out of here on this. Let's talk about some areas of business that new business owners just may overlook.
Sure.
A new business owner like myself that just might overlook, not even think about it. Give me a couple examples.
We all get busy, Rick, and the first thing everybody does, they jump into business.
Yeah.
I want to make business. I want to make money. I want to get clients.
Yeah.
Set up an LLC. That is a critical post-zero. You'd be shocked at how many existing businesses don't have corporate protection. And I know that sounds weird. I know we just jumped from IP to corporate protection. They go hand in hand. You want that corporate entity to own your intellectual property, but it's a chicken and an egg. You have to have the entity before it can own anything. Also, you have a layer of protection once that's established. And again, a lot of people are like, hey, I want to go do business and I'm not going to worry about this. You really want that in place. Again, food's a great example, beverage. You have a food poisoning situation. Guess what? If it's just Rick, they come after Rick's wallet.
Right.
If there's an LLC or if there's Let's Talk Business South Carolina, LLC, Inc., whatever it might be, you have a corporate shield between those assets and whatever may or may not have occurred. But if you don't set up those corporate entities at day one, it's literally your wallet or purse that's at play.
Doug, great stuff as always.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate
you being here, man. Everyone, that is Doug Lineberry. He is a partner at Burr Forman Law Firm. He sits here in the Greenville office, but they have offices throughout South Carolina and throughout the Southeast, really. We are going to take a 60-second commercial break. We won't be gone very long, but we will be back